Hey entrepreneurs, executives, and spammers. We started the Pilot House email and customer retention team to crush targets. And in our 4th year, we are the best customer retention team in the Roman character set. We use campaigns to fire up the addresses you spent so much money to acquire and build effective automations that keep your engagement window fat and drive value that you can amortize over years. The cheapest customer is the customer you already have, and the most effective ad funnels go to high-intent audience. Come to pilothouse.co, fill out the lead form, and ask to speak with me directly. I'll give you a free audit. Back to the show.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
So you need more revenue now. Okay, well, look, what's revenue? There's different kinds of revenue. When a metric becomes a target, you can no longer use it to judge what's going on with your business. Because it's, what purchases does email really drive? Email really drives, let's not get cute, the easiest way to get more inbox placement. You need to just squeeze some more out of this rag right now. And it's both how to squeeze more out and how to do it in a way that's actually improving your business and not just pumping numbers that don't matter. It's the world's best email and retention podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you want to add the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue to your digital ecosystem, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app today. In this episode, we're going to have the discussion, so you need more revenue now. The last couple episodes, we talked a lot about email for brand, how email interacts with long-term brand reinforcement versus CRO. And every once in a while, when I'm coming up with podcast content, I sit back and I go, look, what do people want, right? And very often, I come back, what are people into right now? What does the audience want to know about right now? I think more revenue, obviously. That's what the audience wants. More. How do I make more revenue? So we're going to recenter around that today. And, bottom line, if you just want more revenue now, it's more inbox placement. And that would be more flows or more campaigns. So we're going to get there and we're going to just have a discussion about that. But first, and here's where, I think for a lot of you professionals or busy entrepreneurs out there who want to avoid pitfalls, I think one of the real value adds in the podcast is understanding what you're getting into when you start on any venture, like, hey, I want to pump revenue. Okay, well, look, what's revenue, right? There's different kinds of revenue. Understand what you're doing. You want to understand what you're doing to your digital ecosystem as you try to target whatever metric you're trying to target. Because when a metric becomes a target, you can no longer use it to judge what's going on with your business. Because it's not really a trending metric anymore. It's a target. So, let's jump in. Let's actually just start with a little bit of a high level at first, which is, you decide, hey, look, I want to pump revenue. First, center your channel, figure out where your channel is affecting your business the most. And then you can figure out where you want to pump revenue. First part is just, hey, what's email retention doing, right? So first little bit of review from the last couple episodes, just to show you, in practice where that fits in. Remember, you're going to look at your real opens, which the easiest thing to do if you've got segments that are rather strict on Apple privacy opens is just take your opens and divide it in half and call those real. So real opens versus ad impressions. How much brand reinforcement am I doing versus brand awareness? And email clicks versus organic clicks, which is how well am I turning new traffic into persistent audience. And the reason you want to size those is you want to figure out, where's email making a difference? If email is doing a really, really good job on those things, you don't want to kneecap it. And if email is really, really lagging in any of those, don't count on getting any results in that area, right? Okay, next, from a little bit further back, your base. So your active base, your active first-time buyers, your active repeat buyers. It's your base. So are your active first-time buyers up year over year? Are your active repeat buyers up year over year? An active repeat buyer is they've purchased in the last 12 months and they've purchased more than once ever. You always want your active repeat base growing. Those are persistent customers, right? That's your business. So is that thing, growing year over year? And how is the active repeat base growing relative to active first-time base? So basically, is active repeat base as a share of active base growing? That's like, retention is growing as a share of your business, right? So, okay, yeah, how is email doing versus brand awareness? How is email doing versus traffic and turning traffic into persistent audience? How is your customer base doing? How is retention doing? Email drives retention. It's not the only retention channel. And then share of incremental year over year. I'm going to tell you the easiest way to measure this. Someone comes and does an audit. Very often I show them this. You can measure it pretty easy. You go into Shopify and you download your monthly repeat buyer report, and it'll show you repeat buyers and buyers. Repeat buyers minus repeat buyers is first-time buyers. There's some nuance in here which we might discuss a little bit later, which is like if someone buys and then repeats in the same month, Shopify calls them a repeat buyer. Keep that in mind. They don't show up as a first-time buyer. So they never show up as a first-time buyer in this report if they repeat in the same month. Lots of people repeat in the same month. So just keep that in mind when you're analyzing this stuff, because it can catch you up. So you take your first-time buyers this year minus last year, your repeat buyers this year minus last year, and you look at the two and you say, okay, how size the two together. That's your incremental buyers year over year. What share of those are repeat? Is repeat more than 50%? In that case, retention is actually carrying your business. Is our first-time buyers more than 50%? Okay, then customer acquisition is carrying your business, right? So understand where that's going, because that's going to give you an idea of where you want to focus. Like, am I focusing on CRO and making sure that a new person who comes in the front door makes that purchase? Am I focusing on reaching back and driving more business? Well, look, if you know you have a lot of new buyers that you've pushed through, and you know that because you look at your base, right? And you go, wow, I know I got a whole lot of buyers, but for some reason, first time is carrying the business, and right now, and I know I brought in all these first time buyers. Well, then you probably want to lift retention as a share, right? So that's part of that analysis. And then, by the way, when you take your base, take your share of incremental, kind of put that together. All that stuff comes together in your repeat rate. So just look at your repeat rate. And last, what is ENR doing? Klaviyo Shopify revenue rate. What is email retention doing? Your Klaviyo to Shopify revenue rate, which is Klaviyo revenue divided by Shopify revenue. Like very common on a well-running account to see this above 30%. A well-running product subscribe account above 60, right? When things are humming, when you got a good customer base. So, how is your Klaviyo Shopify revenue rate year over year? Is email growing? Is email and SMS growing as a share of your business, or shrinking as a share of your business? Look, if it's shrinking, often that's because you've got some inboxing problems, just FYI, right? Because generally, at least if you're scaling your business, Klaviyo just gobbles up more attribution. We'll talk about false attribution in a minute. And then, of course, just deliverability, open rate, click rate, spam rate. Does everything look like it's okay? You can go back to probably the second episode when we talk about how to measure an email channel. Just make sure that, your deliverability metrics are okay. And Glock Apps, I think we've got an interview with Glock Apps coming up where you can just get a good idea of what your inboxing is. So yeah, you're going to embark on this thing. Hey, my boss told me I need more revenue, or, I'm looking at my P&L because I'm an entrepreneur and I just know I need more revenue. You're going to embark on this. First, of course, look before you leap. Just analyze the business. Figure out where you are. If you go through that exercise, rather than just spamming, if you go through that exercise, you'll be surprised at what you'll discover and how it will affect the plan that you make. Okay? So, look, you want more revenue from email, let's say, right? Okay, well, bottom line, you need inbox placement. You just need, the first step is more messages in the inbox, of course. If your work is branding work, if your work is CRO work, if someone doesn't see the email, it does nothing. So ultimately, if you want more revenue, you need more inbox placement. And look, how do you get inbox placement? Engagement, right? We've discussed this before many times. Gmail, their number one indicator for whether or not they put you in the inbox is how people are engaging with your emails. Do they like your emails? Opens and clicks. Now, interestingly, if you're targeting Klaviyo revenue, if you just know I need to hit Klaviyo revenue, and if you're targeting Klaviyo revenue, it's often because you've got somebody somewhere in the organization above you who's like, I want this number to go up, right? We face this all the time. We've got clients who are like, I want this number to go up. Meanwhile, I mean, there's all kinds of ways that it falsely attributes. And, we know that we're going to discuss maybe better targets than Klaviyo revenue. We'll get into that in a second. But ultimately, if you're targeting Klaviyo revenue, either one, you just really like platform, or two, there's just some reason you need to target platform from somewhere else in an organization. Now, interestingly, Klaviyo attribution requires opens and clicks. So the nice thing is, to get inbox placement, you need opens and clicks. And to get attributed revenue, you need opens and clicks. So, if you've been a regular listener and you've listened to our segmentation talks many times, just improve your open rate and click rate, right? And just do things that people are going to like, right? So that's content. Do a frequency where you're going to get engagement. You send 5 emails, you don't get 5 times more clicks than if you send 1 email, right? Send an email every day, you don't get a click every day. Send an email a week, yeah. Is an email a week the thing you want to do if you want to drive more revenue? No, you need more emails. But I'm just saying, set the frequency, right? So that you're getting engagement, content, frequency, and then segmentation, right? Get rid of the crap. That's gonna bring your open rate, click rate up. Go back, I think episode 2 is how to measure an email and retention program, and figure out where you need to be for opens and clicks. So, inbox placement, right? What you need. Just to point out about false attribution on Klaviyo attributed revenue, and then other maybe better targets. Take your segment that you always send with, or your 2 segments if you've been listening to the World's Best Email and Retention podcast and you have your buyers and prospects separate, right? And remove everybody who has a subscribe, a first active, or a placed order in the last 14 days, or maybe 7 days if you've got a really, really short sales cycle. Now you got a second version of those campaigns. That's how you learn second version of those segments. This is how you learn how segments work. You make slight variations and you send them. This is what we do all year. This is how we make our segmentation. Now, if you do that and your domain's big enough that your domain revenue is big enough that you're actually going to get a difference, right? From just this small amount of days. You do that and you'll see, well, there's actually a drop in attributed revenue. Right? Now, let's say someone bought and then they bought again 3 days later, right? And you're seeing it in the segment that has that doesn't have the 7-day buyers removed. Did email really drive that purchase on day 3? Come on. Maybe if you've got a good post-purchase, yeah, right? But you can look and see if it was it the post-purchase email, right? What's the click rate on that post-purchase email? But we're talking campaigns here. So does just your average, Tuesday campaign, is that what drives that purchase 3 days later from a buyer? Not really, right? It's just attribution. It's just somebody opened the email, or Apple Privacy just opened the email and they didn't even open the email, and they get the attribution. What purchases does email really drive? Email really drives someone is on the list for 6 weeks and just sitting around. Oh, and then they make the purchase, right? Someone makes a purchase and then buys again 9 months later when it's time to refresh or renew or whatever, and they're still kicking around. But here's the thing. It's very difficult to attribute that. It's difficult to attribute the relationship. So we always attribute the CRO, right? This is what we discussed in the last few episodes. There's this brand reinforcement relationship over the long haul, and there's CRO right now. We pump the CRO because it's hard to attribute the relationship. You can do it by creating a control group, and that control group doesn't get any emails except a welcome email 1 ever. And then you know what the benefit of email is. That also, by the way, that doesn't split up between the CRO and the relationship. It's just the benefit of email, but at least it properly includes that relationship. But you know what? To really do that, honestly, you got to run it for 12 months. So for our purposes, we don't really do it because we're getting people results now, right? Which will be our discussion. I like at the end of every episode to give you something that you can do right now. So we try to help people do something right now. So we don't do a whole lot of that customer control group. If you are an email professional, you might want to set up that control group. If you're going to be in the role for multiple years, you get the role, set it up right away. And then 1 year down the line, you're going to be able to say, look, here is the uplift of this channel. And because of all that relationship stuff we discussed, you'd be surprised what the uplift is. So the point here is, when you are really pumping platform revenue, sometimes you're actually damaging things because you're getting, just platform bulk revenue. I'm going to grab that. Hey, me, that was me. And ruining the long-term relationship where that real uplift comes from. So that can sometimes be the situation. So what do we think about that? Well, you can use multi-touch attribution software, MTA, like Triple Whale. Look back a few episodes. We had Triple Whale on the show. We talked about attribution and abandonment, right? AA. So if you do that software, by the way, we have no financial or otherwise relationship between Triple Whale and the world's best email and retention podcast. I just like to bring you the best information that I can. So go back and check it out. But that software will say, oh, you've been running this, email relationship program. You're talking to people for 2 years. How can we correlate that with purchases through direct load, branded search, ads? And it kind of just crunches that using regressions and probably some more stuff now. And that will tell you. So it's your first step, right? If you've got the right software, if you're big enough that you're running these MTAs, then you're much safer pumping revenue because you've got the right signal, right? When that goes up, to a greater degree that it's actually translating to business. Okay, let's say you're not running that kind of software. Well, you can run a parallel 7-day click. I realize this episode has kind of become, a long time ago I said how to attribute an email program. This is kind of that episode, how to attribute an email program. And it does make sense because if you want more revenue, you need to understand how you're attributing it. So maybe we'll put that in the title. So you can run a concurrent 7-day click. You've got the default, which is 5-day open, 5-day click. You can go into Klaviyo. Don't change your attribution. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Everything gets screwed up for a year. You got no comparables. In 1 year, you have 1 month of comparables, right? So basically for 2 years, you're screwed up if you change your attribution in Klaviyo. Don't do it. But you can go in and month by month, you can run what if this was the attribution. It doesn't go down to the individual emails. It's just the macro but it's good enough. So you can just run the last, say, 18 months, right? So you've got half over half, you've got year over year for 6 months rolling with 18 months. And you can look at your 7-day click versus your default 5-day click, 5-day open. You can look how they're growing year over year. If you see your 5-day click, 5-day open growing way faster than your 7-day click, false attribution, man. Your program's full of false attribution, right? Whew. Yeah, so you can run that, and then you can say, I'm going to pump my revenue and make sure that the pump you're getting is not just an open-based pump. Of course, some opens should be attributed, right? But if you see these two trending together, it's healthy. If you see them diverging, it's generally not a good sign, okay? Even better than that. Like I say, maybe you're a professional. You're an internet professional. Someone's told you, I want this number to go up. All right. And in that situation, what do? We do our best to make it go up. But we, and so should you, as we build what we're doing, we build it in a way that we know it's going to get the real benefit down the line. So what would be better things to try for than just revenue, right? Well, we discussed a couple things earlier on. Why not accelerate the funnel? Because the funnel, your new addresses, first-time buyers, repeat buyers, right? That's all channel. So if email does influence another channel, it's going to show up there. If you make a sudden change with one of your channels, if you really make a change with one of your channels, you should see a change in your funnel. By the way, if you make some glorious change with any channel and you don't see your all-channel funnel, like just your Shopify funnel, change, that channel might not be doing anything, right? So if you're making a lot of changes all at once, it can be difficult by just looking at the funnel to understand if it's making a difference. But you could couple it with other indicators. You could use that revenue metric that we were discussing that has all kinds of flaws, right? And you could say, oh, but we do see this concurrent change in the funnel. So how would you think about the funnel, right? Okay, new addresses. You just go and you just measure we got new addresses this month. So the address was created in this month, okay? And then you just go to that Shopify report I told you about. First-time buyers, repeat buyers. Now, I told you that first-time buyer number is troubled, right? Because if you get someone to repeat in the same month, they show up as a repeat buyer. So you can also create a segment and you say people who bought in this month and had placed orders, bought any number of times in this month and had placed order 0 times in a previous month. And then you could also get sneaky and say, and has received an email in this month. I mean, now if you're making a segment, you can also make sure that they're receiving email. But you know what? Keep it simple. You got your email metrics, you got your funnel, right? So, okay, you got your new addresses that month, and you got your first-time buyers that month. Try to push that number up. Use email to push that number up. So that's an acceleration of your funnel. And here's an important point. I'm sorry I didn't discuss this earlier. Why would you want to be looking at, we're going to discuss funnel base, share of incremental. We're going to discuss those again. We did discuss those earlier as part of our analysis. Why would you be thinking about those rather than just revenue? Look, if you're in a situation where your revenue's down, I mean, having revenue down less might be the best case scenario. I mean, it might be you're like, we're down 20% and we want to be down 10, right? Okay, well, if your target is actually not for revenue to go up and your target is just to stop the bleeding, you're kind of going to need a different target, because who targets minus 10% revenue, right? That's not a target you can show somebody, right? Don't take that one to the bank. So you need to actually target an improvement in the business that will lead to that further improvement down the line in revenue. So accelerate the funnel. Addresses, first-time buyers. First-time buyer divided by address, that's your conversion rate. That's how you convert first-time buyers to addresses. They're floating, so that the first-time buyer could be from could have joined in a previous month. They float, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just trend it, right? If you make improvements, when you see in multiple months that you've improved your business. And then also take new addresses and that repeat buyer metric. And what portion of, you need to, for this, you need to make another special segment. To understand how you're doing at creating repeat buyers, you need to say, place an order in this month, same month as your new addresses, new added, right? Placed order this month, and placed order equals once in a previous month. What's that mean? It's their first repeat purchase. So now we've got an interesting funnel. New addresses, place their first order ever, and we got them to place their first repeat order. So that way it doesn't get fuzzied by your regular customers. It doesn't get fuzzied by product subscribe. People are just getting the product every month. It's like, this is what's happening in the funnel now, right? Okay, look, try to accelerate that. I mean, if you're make that look better, you might not actually be able to make your revenue look better, but if you make that look better, your revenue's gonna look better, right? And then once that looks better, it's all about, hey, just get more addresses, right? If you get that thing looking better, the next step is to pump your addresses, which means, hey, let's invest in ads. By the way, feel free to go to pilothouse.co and speak to our sales team about advertising. After you fix the funnel, like we just discussed, right? Just pump in more addresses. And then what's that going to do? That's going to improve your base. Again, we just discussed base a little bit ago. You improve your funnel, you'll improve your base, right? And so, maybe you're going to improve your base more on first time, and maybe you're going to improve your base more on repeat, depending on the optimization you do there. But target that improvement, right? So again, if you're down and you're like, I need more revenue now, and you're not going to be up and you need a target, hey, target an improvement in repeat versus you target an improvement in the first time buyer funnel. So you're doing better at converting first time. And then you target an increase in repeat as share of active base, right? And if you do those, your business is going to improve. And you're going to see that before it shows up in top line. Because again, you're just like, well, by the time you see it in your basis, you're going to see it in your top line. And then finally, that share of incremental. So this is the email and retention podcast. I'll tell you right now, if you might find yourself in a situation, if you're down, that retention is greater than 50% of your incremental year-over-year buyer growth, right? That's the situation. Obviously, improve your rate of converting for new addresses into first time. So that would be a better or another or an accompanying set of targets. As someone says, we need more revenue, and you want to go out and you want to drive that revenue metric, you want to make that revenue number go up, but you want to know it's actually improving the business, because otherwise you're going to spin your wheels and 3 months down the line, you're going to be in trouble, right? Because all that effort didn't go anywhere. And then you're going to need to apply twice as much effort. Okay, that was half an hour, right? Let's talk about practically how you're going to do it. Yeah, I'd say more right now, leads coming into our business, into our service that are, I'll just say like their email and retention system is impaired, or maybe they realize it's impaired. And we were at a period where people were just like blasting out ads. And some people, because of the interest rates and this and that, some businesses are just tighter. And then they realize, oh, wow, I've got to fix this email program so I can get as much out of it over the next 3 years or whatever, right? So I've got more of that coming in, just like this thing is a mess, right? Can you please help us fix it. So that's what I've got coming in the funnel, more of. So what do they need to do if they have this kind of mess and they need more money now? They just need more revenue, right? Like I said earlier, it's inbox placement or discounting, right? Let's say your plan is not to just do 20% off and shoot everything out the front door, right? With the exact same setup. If you do that, you will get more revenue with the exact same inbox placement. Your margin's going to go down. So let's say you don't want to do that, or maybe you're going to do some of that, or maybe you already did that and you're like, well, we can't do that again. Where that trick is done. What are we going to do now? Then you're in a pickle, right? Like, well, we've already discounted and now we need more revenue. Okay, more inbox placement. And let's say you listen to this podcast because you want to know how to do it easy, right? You can't get too complicated. You only have so much time, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's not get cute. The easiest way to get more inbox placement is just to add more campaigns, right? So maybe we'll discuss something a little more sophisticated than that in a second. But let's just start and be honest. If you just get more campaigns at the front door, you're going to get more revenue. Now, we discussed earlier, you can end up in this situation. I see it all the time. People come in, they've got a 0.24% click-through rate because they've just done this and driven the engagement down, not enough clicks and opens from Gmail relative to the number of emails that they're pushing through. They downgrade you. You're partially in spam. And then suddenly you're making less revenue. So if you're going to do this, go in and cut your engagement window in half. Now, I can't see your metrics. I don't know exactly. Half is like go from 180 days to 90 days, right? You know what I mean? So, or from 120 to 60. Now, of course, if you've been listening to the World's Best Email Retention podcast, 180-day windows don't really work anymore anyway. But point being, I would say don't make it less than 30 days. But go in there. If you're gonna start sending out, an extra campaign a week, or 2 more a week, right? Go in and cut your engagement window. Now, a caution, and this is why I say I can't see your metrics. This is you got to tweak this to do it right. When you send out less emails, like when it's a smaller send size, you drive less opens, and those opens are what keep people on the list for future campaigns. So you're sending a smaller list. Eventually that segment will bleed openers and you'll have a smaller list to send, launches and big important messages to in future. But you're sending more campaigns, right? And so that's an extra chance for someone to open. You have to balance your frequency and your send size, right? But if you're just watching this podcast because you're like, I need more revenue now, send an extra 1.5 campaigns a week and cut your send size in half. Probably going to work. What would those campaigns be? Well, either one, like let's say you had a nice, generous sized catalog. Just do a weekly offer on one product. The nice thing about that is people can't just clear you out, right? It's like, here's this product, 15% off. And then next week, this product's 50% off. It's kind of like Woot.com, if anybody remembers Woot. It's just one product on offer every week. We got a client that does this, and they've been consistent with it. They got a big catalog. They've been consistent with it. And that email gets great engagement, and people stay on the list, right? Let's say you don't have a generously sized catalog like that. Well, then it's got to be content. It's got to be brand building. You have to be adding value, right? This obviously varies brand to brand, but again, if you're just looking for wins, you're going to go into your digital ecosystem for the best content you have, linked to videos embedded on your site, blog posts, right? And then you can put some recommendations or something in the email at the bottom, just have it a standard part of the template. So now what's that going to do? That's not really revenue driving. I mean, it's not, when you do the 20% off and you send it to your whole list, you get this like explosion. Again, You might be watching this episode because you've already done that. You're like, oh God. So what was that? It was just an inbox placement. It was another chance for someone to click through, end up on the site, and purchase. It's someone that's on your list. They've raised their hand and said, I want your emails, or they've bought from you before. It's just another inbox placement. Get them on the site. Every visit is a chance to buy. And because you're doing content, because you're doing something enriching, you're not going to be driving down your engagement with the extra messages and damaging your sending reputation. So yeah, the extra message is not a banger, but it's a safe play. What you're actually doing there is while you're getting that extra inbox placement, which will drive more results, you're also getting this, you're feeding into that relationship aspect of how email improves businesses that is hard to attribute. And like we said earlier on, what are we discussing here? We're 40 minutes in now. This is a marathon talk because this is important stuff if you're trying to make more money. When you target that revenue number, it's like that revenue number is not money in your pocket. There's all kinds of problems with every revenue number. Even if you get an MTA, there's problems with the revenue number. You can go through line by line. You can do an export of different conversions and look at what it attributed, and you'll end up with rows where you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Why is that attributing that? That doesn't make any sense with my business. You're going to see that because it's like a regression, right? So if you're targeting that, you got to understand it's not money in your pocket. So you got to do the things while you're targeting that number that you know will put more money in your pocket. Build that relationship. And so here's the way. Tighten the window, add extra touch points, add extra inbox placement. That inbox placement is a visit. It does drive more purchases, but since you use content, it builds the relationship and you are fortifying your email system. Wow, right? What about flows? So that campaign one, that's the easiest one. So you've already done that. My God, right? Let's say you've already started doing 20% off and that's done. And then you've already pumped your campaigns and that's done. Although if you have pumped your campaigns and that extra one isn't rich content, consider that. I mean, what is there left? There's your automations, right? And again, a lot of people I have coming in the front door right now, their automations are a mess. And probably they've been sitting there as a mess for a long time. And the way the business cycle is running, it's like you kind of avoid something as long as you can. And then you're like, oh my God, okay, this is where we are in the business cycle. I need to focus on getting the most out of every single address. I need to bring down my cost to acquire. Okay, my God, I have to fix these flows, right? I've got so much of that coming in right now. All right, first, I'm going to repeat something that I discussed on the DTC podcast. Let me just first repeat this. If you have an automated program that is just a mess, you can build this is how you tear the Band-Aid off. You build a competing automated system, which is smaller, way less messages, and simple, right? Maybe get us to do it. Feel free to go to pallethouse.co, fill out the lead form, and you build that competing system. And then everybody who goes into, then you push everybody into that new system, except if they have an email address that starts with A, B, C, D, or E. Anybody with an email address that starts with A, B, C, D, or E goes into the old one. And you got a split test. And you just look at it and you say, look, does the new one, which is well thought out and has all the right rules, does the new one beat the old one? Or does it at least beat the old one? Or does it at least, because if that one's firing everywhere, it's going to have inbox placement. Might not be great for your brand. And it's definitely tons of technical debt. I mean, people are calling us because they're like, this is so much technical debt. I don't even have time to deal with this. So if you do that split test and it's close enough it drives enough revenue after accounting for the decrease in technical debt, then go with it. What's that mean? It's like, well, look, the attributed revenue is 80% of this monstrosity, but this is something I can work with. Go with it. Because I just told you all the problems with attribution anyway, right? I mean, if like definitely 20% is like, let's just say the variance on reality to attributed revenue is, I would say 20% is within that variance, right? So you could actually be improving your business if that revenue drops by 20%. You could be. If you're no longer just firing random stuff everywhere. Yeah, so that's the way that you declare automation bankruptcy. Build a new one. 80% goes, by the way, people whose email addresses start with A through E is about 20%. So you get 20% in the old one, 80% in the new one. Does the new one do the job? It does. Okay, turn the old one off, and you just declared bankruptcy. And we can help you with this too. It's something that we do this sometimes, right? Let's say you're not going to declare bankruptcy because either maybe you don't need to, right? I mean, it could be the opposite. You just don't have enough. You don't have enough touch points. You don't have enough automated touch points. Seriously, like somebody comes to the site and then they walk away. If you have your segment set up where, okay, after someone visits the site, for 3 days they don't get any campaigns, and you have site abandon 1, site abandon 2, or browse abandon 1, browse abandon 2, browse abandon 3, go in those 3 days. Because, I mean, you should be using smart sending anyway. So if you're sending campaigns in that time, you don't know if they're getting the browse abandon. Maybe they're getting the campaign. The browse abandon gets blocked, and the actual good email doesn't even go. So if you've got this set up right, and they're getting an email that shows what they looked at, has some recommendations based on what they looked at, and then does it detail features and benefits or objection cancellation, where you think what are the most common objections? I'm gonna deny those, right, in the email. If you get an email that shows testimonials, that email goes out after they show intent. That is going to do better than a campaign that's just not speaking to them where they are in the purchase cycle, and in the funnel, in the purchase funnel, in your site funnel. It's going to do better, and we know this because you just look at your browse abandoned email, look at the click-through rate, look at your campaigns, look at the click-through rate. Even if you separate your campaigns by recent addresses, so that you can compare that versus campaigns to recent addresses that have engaged recently, it's going to do better. So you want more of those touch points. If you don't have nearly enough, go to a professional, have them build it out. But let's say you're kind of there. Okay, well, let's add one email to the end of each abandon. Okay, let's say you're feeling hacky. Add site abandon 2 to the end of browse abandon, cart abandon, checkout abandon. And what's site abandon 1 have? If you listened to our episode on the only site abandon you'll ever need, site abandon 1's got bestsellers, it's got marketing, and what is it? It's an extra touch point. Just take that thing, put it at the end of each one. You got an extra touch point. If you want to beef up site abandon, take recommendations 2 and put it as at the end of site abandon. So you just, without even making any extra content, you just fortified those. I mean, obviously it's better to build extra messages, but we're at 49 minutes already, right? We're looking for you need more revenue right now. I'm just giving you some stuff you can do. Alternately, you could make an additional email, make a new one, and that one goes at the end, and it's got recommendations. It features your hero product, whatever that hero product is, because that's the one that sells the most. Break down your hero product and have an offer specifically for that hero product. So they go through whatever their abandon is. It doesn't work. They fail. And what are you doing? You're giving them recommendations based on where they are. You're explaining your most important product just in case they don't know, because guess what? People go through your whole funnel and they don't get it. Right? Like, oh my God. Because can you promise that you go through the funnel of some other business and on the other end you get it? No, you can't. People are doom scrolling all day and just bouncing all over the place. That's e-commerce. So you're going to show them something that might be interesting versus what they've viewed on your site. And you're going to explain very clearly the most important thing for them product for them to understand, and you're going to give them an offer for that product. And you take that and you put it into your funnel. And then it's an extra touch point. And it's not just repeating sort of, like, hey, didn't I see this just a little bit ago? Right? It's not that. And it's a cool, brandy touch point. And then, look, make an email that says 30% off. And after 120 days, run it every 30 days for 8 months. And then it's going to stop at 1 year where all the spam traps start. So you're nice and safe. You don't have to worry about pre-qualifying addresses and all this stuff. And then send it to buyers and subscribers 21 days after they buy or subscribe. And just give them a 30% off, right? So that would be like, look, all the other stuff you did didn't work. We just made a campaign program that wasn't focused on 20% off. Maybe you've already done that, right? It was actually focused on sending out more content, getting an extra inbox placement, not blowing up your inbox by by matching your frequency to your engagement window, and adding a classy touch point, right, at the end of your abandonment. I mean, recall, what were the number one sources of revenue? What were the sources of revenue? We discussed this on like episode 3 or something like that. First source of revenue in an email program is welcome. And of course you can change your welcome offer, but I'm trying to give you classy things other than just discounting, right? So first is welcome. The next largest source of revenue is abandonment. And after that, if you recall, it was actually inbox placement. It was just raw numbers game, from what I can tell, is the next source of revenue after that. And then it got to other stuff, We start going through post-purchase and stuff. Reactivation is actually one of the lowest. I just said that 30% off. What that does is get them to open and they get back in your campaigns, and then they purchase from a campaign. Anyway, we just went through the classy stuff. We tried to just show you how to pump your revenue right now in a classy way. The last thing you do is at 120 days, give them 30% off and just, and then while you're doing that, watch those better metrics. Watch your Shopify lifecycle funnel, new address, first-time buyer, new repeat buyer. Watch your base. Watch your share of incremental that's coming from repeat, right? Watch those and make sure as you do this, because as I said, if you fundamentally change the way a channel works and you do not see a change in that purchase funnel, that channel was not doing what you thought it was doing. The channel was doing nothing. Well, it was doing nothing, or you didn't change it enough. I mean, maybe you think you changed it a lot. If you're doing 2 campaigns a week and you just add a third, that should show up. If you're doing 3 a week and you add a fourth, nothing might show up. Because if you're sending 3 campaigns a week, they get it. They're aware of your product. I guarantee they're aware of your product. They know what's going on. That fourth email might drive some of that attribution we discussed, or drive some of that attributed revenue, which can be questionable. But you might not see a change in those retention metrics. So make sure as you target that, as you pump that revenue, that you're seeing improvements elsewhere in the business to know that what you're doing is actually making a difference. That's all the notes I have on my sheet. This is like an hour-long talk. And again, I'm getting more leads that have I would say distressed email and retention programs. And, a lot of time, most of the time we get people who they've got an email agency. Hey, we want to change our email agency. They come, we make a transition, we make some improvements, right? And it's a little more by the book, And I'm just seeing more people who are, I think, getting ready to declare bankruptcy on their email program, which we're happy to help with. Of course, feel free to go to pilothouse.co, fill out the lead form, ask to speak with me. We'll give you a free audit. Although I just listen to this podcast again and make some improvements in your program. But I'm seeing more people who are getting ready to declare bankruptcy. And so, if that's you, and you need to just squeeze some more out of this rag right now, there you go. And it's both how to squeeze more out and how to do it in a way that's actually improving your business and not just pumping numbers that don't matter. So, look, as always, entrepreneurs, executives, and spammers, have fun spamming.
In the inbox late night, glowing screens see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey entrepreneurs and spammers, remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.